Hello and welcome to this video introduction for the HOTS simulation program. We will have started to look through some of the scenario information to find out more about HOTS. I'm going to walk you through each of the decision areas and point out some of the key things for you to consider while making decisions within the simulation program. All of this is guidance, so obviously you need to use your own interpretation, your own opinions, your own thoughts in order to think through what you think is the best option for each of the decision areas. Of course, while you're moving through the program, things will change based on the decisions that you make and the other teams will make, but these pointers will hold you in a good position if you follow them. So, first of all, we'll have a look at the rates management screen. So here we're going to choose the rates for our hotel. So we can set the rates for weekday and weekend rooms. We can set the conference rate, which is a 24-hour delegate rate. So that includes the bedroom, 3 meals a day, and use of the conference and event space. Do bear that in mind when you're thinking about the pricing. Then we have a group rate and an event rate as well. So to walk you through a few of the key areas, obviously the prices down the left are areas that you need to be involved with. You can decide what you wish to change in terms of those rates, and you'll be able to do that on a month-by-month basis moving through the program. You will have to be receptive to what the market is doing, so do keep checking your reports. The key report to check will be the competitor prices report. Within that, you'll be able to see the prices that your competitors within the simulation are charging, and you'll need to decide how you wish to price yourselves accordingly. Always think here about long-term strategy. You don't need to be thinking about short-term wins. So if you've got a plan and you feel that it's right, then you should see that through rather than necessarily changing each and every month if things aren't happening at the speed you would like. Do bear in mind that the simulation is highly realistic. If you make a change, you won't always see the result of that straight away. It may take a couple of months for that to take effect. Also on this page you can do discounts, so you can discount your weekday and weekend rooms for extended stay. You can do a no breakfast, so a room only rate, and you can also do a non-cancelable rate. Those are certainly a good idea to utilise, especially when occupancy levels are low. Do be wary of over discounting. You do need to offer discounts to try and incentivise guests, but you shouldn't over discount, otherwise you're going to suffer with regards to the revenue and the RevPAR that you're able to make, and those two metrics make up a big component of the scorecard. Underneath, so within the section for conferences, groups and events, you're able to choose the revenue split that you wish to have. By revenue split, what we mean is if we take conferencing as an example, within conferencing you have an element of rooms, you have an element of food and beverage, and you have an element of conference rooms. So here we can see rooms at the moment is set to 25%, food and beverage is set to 25%, and conference rooms is set to 50% as well. I'll tell you for free that those are not the best percentages that you should have within this area. Now what this means is that of the $145, that's the total amount that we're charging per guest, 25% of that goes to rooms. So the key thing to think about here is, well, why does that matter? The reason is that one of the key metrics, as I mentioned a few minutes ago, was that RevPAR is a really important metric on the scorecard, which is how you're being assessed. Therefore, if we don't allocate enough budget to rooms, then that will mean that our RevPAR will not be as good as it could have been. So we need to make sure we allocate enough money there. Now, before you think, well, that's great, we'll allocate all of the money to rooms and give nothing to food and beverage and nothing to conference rooms. That won't work either. We need to think about balance here. So if we don't allocate enough within food and beverage or within conference, that will also affect our gross operating profits within those areas. Again, that is a key component of the scorecard, so we need to make sure that we balance well across all three of those areas. Same applies for groups, although groups is only rooms and food, and then events is just food and conference space, so do bear those things in mind. So those are the key pointers for rates. Moving forward to revenue management. Revenue management is a really important area, so again this links on from the rates management screen. Now here we've got 3 or 4 different areas. We've got the area here in the top left hand corner, which I'm circling at the moment. This is for late bookings. The screen tells us late bookings make up 10% of our total bookings. So 1 out of every 10 bookings is a late booking. So it's well worth us having a strategy to deal with that. What this tells us here is that if we have less than 65% occupancy, here on this first line, which I'm highlighting at the moment, this says if we have less than 65% occupancy at the time the late booking window opens, which is 1 week, so 7 days before date of stay. So this says if we have less than 65% occupancy, quote a price which is 100% of normal. So at the moment, we're not offering any discount at all. So I might change that to 85% of the normal rate. So I'm effectively taking off a 15% discount. It's important, however, that we enter that as 85 and not as 15. So we're charging it at 85% of the normal. Next up, we might want to stagger this. So we then say, well, if we're between 65% and 75%, maybe we still want to offer a discount, but we don't want to offer quite as much. We're a bit busier. We still want to incentivise those late bookings, but we need to offer a slightly less discount than above. So we might say 90%. Now the final option, note here, this says if we're more than a certain occupancy. So we might say if we're more than 90% full, so 90% occupancy, we're looking like we're going to be busy. We might even be full. So at this point, we certainly want to charge our full rate. There's no reason for us to discount, because if we're looking like we're going to be busy, we don't want to be giving people rooms for any less than we were charging before. So we might say, certainly we have 100, but we might even want to yield on this even more and charge more. And this is why it's important to set the numbers in this way. So here we're saying we might charge 110%. So we're charging a 10% premium to these people who are booking late because we're looking like we're going to be busy. That's really important. So that's the first area within revenue management. Moving to the right-hand side, so this section here, these are our letting limits. Now these could be seen as a letting limit, or as some people would call this a booking ceiling. This is for groups and for conferences, and we can do this for the weekday, which is the first box here at the top, highlight it now, and then we can do it for weekend in the second area underneath. Key things to think about here are how much of the hotel do we want to allow to be sold to groups and conferences. So if we're going to set quite an aggressive group rate, as an example, we might say, well, we don't want to allow all the rooms to be sold. I mean, this is not guaranteeing that we'll sell 100% of the room to groups. It's merely saying that we will allow that if the demand is there. If I'm setting myself an aggressive rate, I might want to bring this down. So I might say, you know, occupancies aren't that high at the moment, so I'm going to say I'll allow 40% to go to groups. It's perfectly acceptable to set both groups and conferences to 100%. That is essentially saying that we're having no control over bookings. This is if we want to add in that level of control. There's a box here that says allow overbooking. It might seem like quite a small option, something that we don't need to worry too much about. If you do get up to those high levels of occupancy where we're looking like being very busy, that will then come into play. If you do allow overbooking, can lead to negative ramifications, can lead to you having to walk guests to other hotels if you do overbook, and that will have a negative cost in terms of expenses, in terms of your revenue, and it will also have potentially a negative effect in terms of marketing and PR. Final section on this page is for channel management. This is our OTAs, our online travel agents, and global distribution systems. Very simply, we can open and close those by ticking the boxes or unticking the boxes. You will need to assess what you think is the best strategy, and you will have to have a play based on the commissions and based on what you would like to try and sell within that area. Moving to food and beverage, now this is a good opportunity to introduce you to the level system that we have within the simulation. You'll see here we've got menu type 1 through menu type 4 and supplier 1 through 3. Within the program, we use the level system because we want you to be making decisions based on a strategy level. So that strategic thinking is the most important thing. Level 1 is what we would associate with a budget or a lower end hotel. Level 3 or level 4 is what we would associate with a luxury or an upper upscale hotel. So there is a quality level here, but it's about having the right strategic fit for the hotel you're operating within the simulation. So if you have decided that you wish to be a budget hotel, the correct choice is level 1. If you've decided you want to be somewhere in the middle, you should be going 2 or 3. And if you're going for the high end, you need to be going for those top options. So this is about the right fit for your hotel. So think about this, if we're staying in a budget hotel, more of a motel style operation, we're not going to be expecting a high level of food quality. We're expecting a very basic menu and basic food. If we're staying in a luxury upscale market where we're paying lots of money per night, we're going to expect a high class, fine dining menu. So we need to be offering those higher levels. You can then utilize the information within the help file. Once you've made those decisions, choose your meal price and to choose your liquor price, which should also fall in line with that overarching strategy. So that full strategy is really important to you. You should be really clear with your hotels. What style of hotel are we trying to operate? And then you should make all of your decisions to be in line with that. Moving along, now we move to the HR decision area. So we've got two tabs for this. First of all, we have staffing, then we have training. First up here with staffing, this is where we're choosing the number of employees per area and how much we're paying them. You have information built into the program, so all the information you need to make these decisions is given to you. Make sure you're visiting the help files. So come into the help file, look at the information, read the information that we're giving you. That's a really key consideration for you. Think really carefully about that. You can also access the market research. Within the market research, there's a document called Business Advice. That is free. You can access that by cancelling. So I will cancel this at the moment, but save and exit. Going to market research. And then we have this piece of advice called the Business Advice. You'll notice this has a $0 value next to it. Once you click purchase, I won't do that for now because I'll leave you to explore it yourselves. You can click on that, and contained within that file is more information about the optimal levels of staffing for your hotel. If you use that information along with the reports and the help file, you will be able to calculate how many employees you should have here. To give you an example of why that's important, if we take the front desk as an example, front desk is obviously really important. It's the first thing that guests see when they come into the hotel. It's often the first interaction that guests have with the staff within the hotel. Let's imagine we don't have enough staff on the front desk. It might mean that check-in times are slow. It can then mean that initial experience for our guests is bad. So we need to make sure we're staffed appropriately in that area. Same thing goes with hotel services. So hotel services includes housekeeping. Housekeeping is obviously really important. People need to have rooms that have been well looked after, well cleaned, and prepared for the next guest. So that's really important. Bear in mind, of course, if we don't turn the rooms around quickly enough, when those guests come to check in, they might be told that the room isn't ready and they need to wait maybe an extra half an hour or an hour before those rooms are ready for check-in. Now again, if that's the case, it's going to lead to instant guest dissatisfaction, and that's before you've even handed them a room key and they've actually checked in properly to the hotel. So staffing levels are important. Pay level, again, this is important. If we don't pay our staff appropriately, then they're not going to be very satisfied. If they're not satisfied, they will not be providing good service or not be providing as good a service as they can to the guests within your hotel. So you need to look after your employees and pay them appropriately. Do be careful though. Pay level is one of the few areas within the simulation where once you've set that pay level, you can't change it back. You can't give people a pay rise and then take it away. They'll have the unions on you, you'll have all the staff representatives. It will not be a good idea. So you cannot take that pay level down once you put it up. Next up we have training. Continuation from staffing. This again is important. You'll get the impression here that all the areas are important, and that is true because every department needs to be dealt with in a good way in order to make sure that we have a good and well operated hotel. Training is important. If we don't train our employees, then they're not going to stay with us. We will have bad retention. If we don't retain the staff, then they won't be providing a good service. And we know that we need to have good quality staff to be able to provide good quality guest service. All of these things are linked together. We can't necessarily see each of the decision areas in isolation. We need to think, how can we make the whole machine work by being in control of each of the individual parts? So again, use the information provided. The help file is there for you to give you more information. This is one area in the simulation where I would encourage you to invest for sure. You need to decide how much you wish to invest. Once you've set yourself a policy here, feel free to leave it as it is. You don't necessarily need to revisit this each and every month. Once you've made your policy, it's perfectly acceptable to do that and to leave it in place. You don't necessarily need to keep changing it. Next we have advertising. So advertising, this is an area which I can't be more clear about. You have to invest some money here, otherwise you're not going to see as big a return as you would like. The old adage is certainly true. You have to spend money to make money. So if you think, well, we'll save money, we won't spend too much on advertising, that could be a false economy, because that could lead to you not generating the sales and the market share that you would like to achieve within the program. Think about what your key market is. So again, think back to the hotel you're running. Have a really clear idea in your head. What kind of hotel are we? If we're a business hotel, we need to make sure the marketing links in with that. If we're more of a leisure hotel, we need to work in with that as well. There's a few other key considerations here. You need to think within each campaign. So if I'm thinking that I'm going to be a business hotel, one of my core products is going to be my weekday bedroom. So I want people to come and stay with me during the week when they're in town on business. Not surprisingly, a good way to do this would be the business press. Business people read the business newspaper. I then need to allocate a decent amount of budget. Now, the budget of $400 is very low. We're not going to get a great deal of return for that. We need to be spending something more like $2,000 per week to see a decent return. Again, there's more information built into the market research that will help you with this. There's a piece of market research called The Effect of Advertising. That contains 2 or 3 really key pieces of information that will help you make effective decisions in this area. So I'm signposting that to you now. I highly suggest you invest in purchasing that, taking on board the information, and then utilising the information to make decisions here. If you do that and you make clever decisions in terms of the targeting that you wish to do, then you're going to see some good returns. Same goes for the section underneath. Here we've got the local visitors guide, a PR agency and social media. And to the right, we've got weekly budgets for social media, TripAdvisor advertising, and loyalty program training. Now again, key investment in that area based on your overall strategy is what you need to be thinking about. Moving along to EMS. Now EMS stands for Environmental Management System. That wouldn't quite fit on the tab at the bottom of the screen, so we had to shorten that slightly. This is where you can bring any green or eco credentials that you wish into your hotel. Now when you take over the management of your hotels, you'll notice that the previous management were not very friendly to the environment at all. So they've selected none. So there's none for everything. We have no environmental policies here at all. Level 1, we have the level system again. So level 1 is a fairly basic option. Moving through all the way to level 3 is the high-end option. Let's take energy usage reduction with regard to lighting as an example. If we were to go with level 1, that would replace all the light bulbs in the hotel with energy saving equivalents. So relatively low capital costs, the cost saving kicks in pretty much straight away, and we actually start saving money pretty soon with that. So again, one more free piece of advice from me, that would certainly be a good thing to get started with and start looking through some of the others as well. If you move up to level 2 and then move through to level 3, we're going to start utilising a lot more technology in order to make the lighting more cost and energy efficient. So we're going to install things like light sensors and things like that. The capital cost is clearly higher, but again, the savings will continue. So you need to think about this twofold. We need to think, are we doing this solely to save money? And then if we are, we need to think about the payback period. So it's all very well and good thinking it will save us money. These things will all save you money. It's just a case of how long it will take until you get to that break-even point. Secondary thing is to think about this in terms of the actual market. There are people built into the marketplace within the simulation in exactly the same way as the real world. They want to stay in hotels that care for the environment. There are people in the market who care, and there are people in the market who don't. If you want to try and attract the people who care about the environment to your hotel, you will need to have some good decisions here in order to attract them to your property. So those are the 2 key things to think about within this area. Next, we have refurbishment. As with any hotel, it's important to keep the hotel refurbished to a good standard. Now again, you'll notice the level system, and if we take bedrooms as an example, level 1 is a spring clean, so that means that we're doing a deep cleaning of the room. So that's more than we would do on a normal day with housekeeping. We're going to do things like shampooing the carpets, pulling side tables out and really cleaning behind things. So we're going to do a lot of work there that we wouldn't normally do on a day-to-day basis. Level 2 does the same items, but then also replaces some of the key items that wear out more frequently, things like towels and linens. Level 3 is a complete rebuild. This is rip everything out, repaint, restructure, new furniture, absolutely everything. So of course there's quite a big cost difference. Level 3 is going to cost something in the region of $17,000 to $20,000. Level 1 is going to cost in the region of $1,000. So we've got a big difference there. And of course, with all the decisions that involve financial elements, you need to think really carefully about the money you have available. Before you make any decisions here that involve capital, spending money, you should go and look at one report. So let's go and look at that report. So when I come into the reports, the first report that I can see when I load up the report section is called the Statement of Cash Flows. This is our cash flow statement. This is one of the most important financial statements that you have. If we scroll down, this is the line we're most interested in. This is called cash balance, end of period. And the number we're interested in is the first one that we come to. Now, at the moment, that says $1,575,072. That essentially is telling us how much money we have available right now. So as a business, what money do we have? Now, we also need to think about the fact that we're going to have things we need to buy. What if we have a bad month the next month? We have to pay our employees, we have to pay our suppliers. We can't certainly think about spending all that money. We need to leave ourselves a buffer. And based on your level of risk, you'll need to decide how much you wish to spend. My advice would be that you might want to think about always leaving at least $500,000 there to make sure you've got a bit of a buffer and to give yourself a tolerance for any things that could come out of the ordinary. So realistically, at the moment, we could say we have around $1 million to spend. Going back now into decisions and going back through to refurbishment, that would mean that we could factor in that into our budget. Now, I'm again not suggesting you should spend all that million in this area. There are other areas where you might need to invest money. So again, think through your strategy. What is most important for you? Same goes to the public areas, the restaurant, the bar, the front desk, and the conference rooms. Think through really carefully what you need to do. Again, there's reports available to you. If you look at your monthly indicators report, you'll be able to see the current levels of refurbishment within the hotel. You'll be able to see if things are good at the moment, if they are less than good, and then you need to think of what your strategy is moving forwards for how to deal with these refurbishment decisions. Next, we have guest comfort. Now, this is split into three areas. First of all, we have our complimentary items. Now, these are any of the amenities that we get within the bedroom which are replaced on a guest-by-guest basis. So these are things like the soaps, the shampoos, anything like that. Now, again, you'll see the level system. So if we're staying in that budget hotel, we're only expecting level 1. Basic soap and shampoo, probably nothing else. Moving through to level 4, that's where we're going to see everything. We're going to see luxury amenities. We might have a fruit platter on arrival, maybe a vase of flowers. So again, pick the option relevant to your style of hotel. Next, we have in-room entertainment. So this carries on succinctly from that complimentary items. Level 1 is basic TV and telephone. Moving through level 2 and level 3, we add additional items. By the time we get to level 4, we have the full works. We have entertainment suite, we've got pay-per-view movies, we've got a dock for our iPod. So we need to think again carefully about that. The help file will give us information on the costs associated, and it will also give you a full breakdown of all the items that are included for each of the levels. Finally, underneath, we can choose whether we want to have a concierge or a room and lounge service option as well. Additional facilities, extra things that we can add into our hotel. This is an example position at the start. So here we have internet access already. We have the leisure club, we have conference and function rooms, and we have business services as well. But there's plenty of things we don't have. We don't have mini bars in the rooms. We don't have a quick check-in or check-out, or a hotel shop, or a second bar. We can also add additional parking, or we can even do a room extension or a restaurant extension. Now, if we go into the help file, so let's have a look, for instance, at the hotel shop. Once we load this up, you'll see it tells us how much it's going to cost. Tells us it's going to cost us $50,000. Tells us we need to employ 2 additional staff, which go into the other category. And it tells us how long it's going to take to build, 8 weeks. Tells us the benefits above. It says it's going to add value to room sales, it's going to add an additional amenity, and it's going to generate sales for us as well. So again, think through your strategy. What do we want to do? Is this forming part of our strategy? And again, think through to that cash flow. How much money are we going to spend of that cash we have available within the cash flow? So think through all these decisions before we go ahead. Final decision area. Now, this is the finance in terms of decisions. The reporting area is completely separate. This tells us the current value of our bank loan at the top. So that tells us how much money we have outstanding that we owe the bank. All of your businesses are financed via a bank loan. Now, the normal monthly sum that you owe the bank is repaid automatically, and you don't need to worry about that. That will happen without you needing to do anything. If we want to pay a lump sum, so if you'll get to the point where you're doing really well, we can make a loan repayment. This is making a lump sum loan repayment. Only if you're doing well should you do that. You're far better to invest the money in the business rather than paying off the loan if you can't really afford to do it. That's the key piece of advice there. If you're doing really, really well and we're starting to pay the loan off, you can also think about paying an end-of-year dividend to your owner, shareholder, or investor. And again, you can choose how much you wish to do with that. Benefit of paying off the loan, of course, it will bring down your repayments. You'll start paying less interest. Benefit of paying a dividend to your owner. First of all, you'll have a happy owner, which is always a good thing. Any hotel general manager will tell you that. Second thing is that will help to boost your return on capital score within the scorecard. But as I've mentioned, you'd be far better placed investing that money in the business rather than trying to pay these off too quickly before you're ready. So those are all the decision areas. Key takeaways from all of those areas, as I've said a couple of times, think about how you can make a good balanced strategy across all areas. This is about balance. We need to think clearly and we need to think strategically. Second key point is think about that strategic fit. Imagine the hotel that you're managing in your mind. What is it like? Who is it attracting? Make all of your decisions in line with that. I can't encourage you enough to do it in that way. A couple of other things to show you. I'll show you very briefly the Starr Report. The Starr Report from STR, this is an example from a starting position. So at the moment it's not as interesting as it will be later on. This shows us your figures for occupancy, average daily rate and RevPAR. Shows you these for your property. So here we can look. First column shows us my property. Underneath we can see current month, year to date, and then the running 3 and the running 12 month. Second column then shows us an average of our competitors. So what's the average of our comp set? As you'll see at the moment, the two numbers are the same. This exercise has not started yet. As soon as the exercise has started, these numbers will start to change. Then the final number, the index, will also change. As you can see here, 100 is essentially a neutral score. That means that you are doing exactly the same as your competitors. If you go lower than 100, it means that you're doing worse than your competitors. You're underperforming against them. If you get a score over 100, it means you're doing better and you're outperforming your competitors. So we really want to see those index scores over 100. This table works in exactly the same way for ADR and exactly the same for RevPAR. So I would highly encourage you to keep revisiting this. This kind of benchmark data is available within the industry. STR provide this worldwide to hotels. It's something which the more familiar you become with, the better place you'll be to understand this kind of data and metrics when you move into industry. Other areas to show you, so HOTS Reviewer. So within the HOTS Reviewer here, you're going to be receiving real-time reviews from guests who stayed in your hotel property. These reviews are not random, they're all generated based on the decisions that you have made within the program. So you should take them and listen to them and see how you can react. So you need to think twofold here. How would I respond personally to the guest? So would I apologise? How would I do that? Would I say thank you? What words would I use? Secondly, just as important, or more important in some ways, is to think how do we respond operationally? So what do we do to fix the problem? If you start to get a lot of reviews saying that service within the hotel is bad, this is a message that the staff within your hotel are not able to provide good service. Why might that be? Maybe the training budget's too low. Maybe they're dissatisfied because they were promised a pay rise and it never came. Try and think through how you can solve these problems or stop them happening again. That would be really, really key for you. All of these things will lead towards the scorecard, which will be shared with you by the person leading your training, leading your course. All the things I've talked about will lead towards this scorecard. This scorecard is based on similar versions used by hotel groups all around the world. People like Marriott and Carlson Residor use scorecards very similar to this, and our version is modelled on their versions. Your team will appear across the top of the screen with your team name that you choose. Think really carefully about those team names, then sometimes it can be the hardest decision that you make, so try and keep them inventive, try and keep them fun as well. Then you've got the 6 key areas listed down the side here. Now I'm going to walk you through the scorecard and explain to you why each of these is important and how each of these is linked together. First of all, I'm going to talk to you about the staff satisfaction. It's really, really important to have satisfied staff. By satisfied, we mean, are they well looked after? Is the pay level right? Are they being trained? Do they feel the hotel is being operated in a good way? If they do, if the answer is yes to all those things, they will be satisfied and that score will start to increase. So that's stage 1. If we focus on our employees and they are satisfied, they in turn will be providing good service to your guests. This is the next metric. So those guests will be satisfied if the staff are providing them with good service. Of course, they need other things. They need the rooms to be well appointed. They need things to be there. They need things to be well looked after. But it's very important to have the staffing right. Then in turn, that guest satisfaction will start to go up. If our guest satisfaction is rising, our market share should start to go up. So if guest satisfaction is going up, we should see more repeat guests. We should also see our PR score. We should see more people wanting to come because our popularity will be rising based on things like the reviews. Market share we want to go up. We obviously want to get as much market as we can from our competitors. The higher the market share we have, the better. So we want to see that growing. If our market share is going up and we have a good rate strategy, we're charging good amounts, then the next stage is that our RevPAR will go up. So revenue per available room, this is that measure of how efficiently we are selling the inventory we have within the hotel. So if that rates management is good and our market share is good, RevPAR should start to increase. Now if RevPAR is going up and if we're managing our costs effectively, next thing will be our GOP. So if we've got that cost control managed in a good way, our gross operating profit will start to increase as well. And again, we want to see that rise and we want to see that moving in an upwards direction. Then the final thing, if our gross operating profit is improving, then the final piece of the jigsaw is that our return on capital. And the simple way to think of return on capital employed is that is profitability. So at the moment, these scores on this scorecard are showing a negative amount. We want to turn that into a positive and we want to get that into as big a positive score as we can. That's the final piece of the jigsaw. So as I said, we need to see this as a narrative, as a story. We can't instantly jump ahead and say, how do we make more money? If there was a magic button that said we could do that, every business owner in the world would be sat there pressing it all day long. So you need to focus on each of those areas that I've walked you through in turn. You need to think of this as that whole unit, that full holistic view, and then you can start to move forward to make decisions. That's everything I have to tell you. So I hope that this video introduction has been useful for you. Final key takeaway from me is think really carefully about how you can lead the market. Be a leader, not a follower. Decide on your strategy, think about what you wish to do, and follow that through. Make sure you take on board all the information, try and spread it out amongst your team, think carefully about each decision you have to make. Also, don't be afraid to make a decision. Sometimes it's worse to do nothing than it is to do something. So do make those decisions, think carefully about what you wish to do. I'm sure you're going to learn a great deal from this time within the simulation. Make sure you enjoy it, have a good time, you're going to learn a lot, and I really hope you have a great time with HOTS during these sessions that you have coming up. Thank you very much and goodbye.